wonderful, and of course we all know that it's owned by women, and that's a powerful thing. And so I have so many things to say, but what I want to tell you right now is that the power of love is what brings me here today. So T-Bird, when you said, you know, what's that? Yes. It's making a stand for love every day in my life, no matter what, even when the fears arise, whether or not we're going to make it through these times. So, or in what form we're going to make it. So I just want to say that that presence of love is what I'm so grateful that this group holds and that you can feel it in the room today. So thank you. So for 5,000 years, the vast majority of women have not had power over ourselves and certainly not over the world. And in our modern times, it is easy to forget that the past 50 to 100 years of achieving partial women's rights is but a nanosecond in time in that 5,000 years, before which, as we know, we couldn't earn money, we couldn't own property, direct flows of wealth, we couldn't run for office or govern. We had to live without freedom over our bodies and without control over our reproduction, without the ability to protect ourselves and our children from male violence, without access to education, health care, and legal services. Women had to live, and as we all know, many still do today, far too many, at the mercy and mercilessness of systems of control that were designed not for women. So without that freedom, until very recently, to exercise our leadership and our personal liberty, women chose or were first forced to live almost entirely dependent in a world primarily designed, owned, and operated and controlled by men. Every dark cloud has a silver lining. So whether we liked it or not, instead of accumulating wealth and power and exercising our private self-interest, women throughout history learned what cannot be taken away from us. We know the intrinsic power of our being, even when we were denied access to money, power, and politics. And we also know that's not a privilege that only women have had. We've had men allies throughout the generations who know and feel this as well. Women know the power of love, and we also have learned the art of serving. We served our masters, we've served our lords. We still continue to serve our children, our families, our communities, our schools, our churches, and all before ourselves. Our skills as women and men are honed at building relationships and bonds of mutual support and caring for each other. Do we not love to groom and pet and tend one another? And when we do, what happens? Our biochemistry rewards us with oxytocin and we feel fabulous, yes? So the course of human events has prepared women and men perfectly for this time. For what the world needs now, as we know, is not growing numbers of wealthier and wealthier, powerful people protecting their private self-interests, nor endless wars of nations fighting for their survival and control of resources. What the world needs now, of course, is love. And people who know how to lead and transform the world with love in the moment, because what we only have is the moment. We can fantasize and hope about what the future will be, but it is in this moment when we connect with people, that is where we experience love. So women, in this summit's title, when women is paired with the words money, power, and politics, it's provocative because we have been denied access to them forever. And in the absence of traditional power, money, and politics, love as the ultimate source of power is what women have been practicing throughout history. And it's the power that we're called to bring forth now. It is the power, unfortunately, that is still taboo to mention in politics and business at large. So how and when will women lead with love on the playing field of power in full and equal partnership and in equal numbers with men? How many of you have seen the movie Misrepresentation? Have you seen the documentary film? It's about how women are underrepresented in government and over-sexualized in the media, and how our voices are largely absent or marginalized in the important debates of the day. At the time of her film, that was 3 years ago, women were only 17% of the U.S. elected offices, and our country was ranked 74th worldwide. Do you know what it is now? It's gotten worse. America now ranks 98th in the world. It's down from 59th in 1998. We're just behind Kenya and Indonesia, and we are barely ahead of the United Arab Emirates. Only 5 U.S. governors are women. 24 states have never yet had a female governor. Women hold less than 25% of state legislative offices. That's barely higher than in 1993. Only 12 of our 100 largest cities have female mayors. The unequal representation of women affects the very core of our democracy. At the birth of our country, independence was a clarion call for freedom, equality, and justice in response to monarchy and authoritarian control. Yet we know it came in the context of empire, slavery, the subjugation of women, the eradication of native peoples, and the conquest of their lands. It was freedom and liberty for some, and brutal oppression for many, who still, not only here in the United States, and we know all too well, all over the world, struggle for rights and equal opportunity. For more than half of our country's history, a small minority of people have had complete control, economic, legislative, judicial, and executive, and that advantage has resulted in a concentration of wealth and power that is continuing to use the system to perpetuate private self-interest. That pursuit of unlimited growth for private profit, as we know, in conjunction with those of us who continue to participate and support the system through our own personal habits, is destroying the life systems on our planet. It's driving us, as we know, to what scientists call the age of extinctions. At this late hour in history, I would say women have gained entrance onto a tragic playing field of political power, and more than a little late in the game. And yet, as we hear everywhere, and as we feel that imperative ourselves, prominent leaders are suggesting that women will save the world, that women are a good business case investment. Have you heard that? And that women will restore public trust in institutions. Sheryl Sandberg invites women to lean in, and we are. Arianna Huffington reminds us to finally take care of ourselves first in order to thrive while we lean in. Yet those are messages to individual women about how to live a little bit better within the system. It's time for women to use the power of love in partnership with men to transform the systems so that they work for everyone rather than leaning into them. It's time to explore our collective power as women, not just our individual ability to thrive. We can develop our collective purchasing power, our collective voting power, our collective cultural power to redesign and heal the world. The path to more equal representation for women is not a simple one. Women's access to political power is not inevitable. You may know, but the percentage of women in government has stalled in the United States. In some states, it has gone down again. Throughout the world, quotas have been the only solution around the world for increasing the number of women in elected office. Quotas in our political climate are taboo. And so while we today can be very heartfelt and know that we would love for more women to be at decision-making power at tables in more numbers. The question we're going to have to ask ourselves and to actually get through this time is to get clear about how we're actually going to change those numbers. Funding for women and girls' empowerment and leadership is less than 3% of all philanthropic dollars in the U.S. We're struggling to keep women's advocacy organizations and institutions afloat. As we can see in 238 years of this experiment in democracy, clearly we have yet to create a more perfect union. It's time to evolve democracy. Americans agree almost universally that democracy is broken. They also agree that the concentration of wealth and power and the wholesale purchase of our government for private interest is at the heart of the problem. But let us not think that the recipe is to simply add women and stir. And voila, the problem will be solved. Women who can lead in partnership with men to ensure that the will of we the people is heard above private self-interest is required. And this is not to suggest that business and men are to blame, nor is it to suggest that women alone are the answer. It's about partnership and sharing power in service to all people and in service to all life. In an independent era, the meme and the norm was about living in service to oneself and in service to private self-interest. That has gone awry. It's time to shift to an era of interdependence. Women and men together are needed to help us turn from the love of power and money to the power of love. From control and domination to partnership and cooperation, we are a global family, struggling to find a world of shared prosperity and mutual security amidst declining resources. In this century, we must grow. We must recognize our interdependence with all people and all life. So it's imperative, as we do that we create an agenda and a common vision for a just and regenerative future. As a member of the Women Donors Network, I've learned that we can accelerate women's leadership with increased funding to national and international organizations, working not just for the empowerment of women and girls, but also for gender partnership and partnership education. With a national network of individuals, men and women, and organizations, we can bring to bear our collective purchasing power, our collective cultural power, and our collective voting power as we work now in unprecedented partnerships. And this is not about Republican or Democrat, liberal or conservative. This is about people who care about the future of the world, working together across social, political, religious, and other divides. It is about finding the values that can unite us, as if our children's future depends upon it and that all life depends upon it. Because clearly, it does. We must join together to bring our highest human... we must join together to bring our highest humanity to our politics. Is it not clear that it's time to build a global politics of love? And how will we do that in a climate where love is not a word that is really allowed in Washington, D.C.? It's seen as a weakness. Women can bring our power, and men can bring our power of being that knows that love is the power. And it's our ability to connect, it's our ability to be present, and it's our ability to actually ourselves transit the divide instead of expecting others to. It's our ability to transform. So as we balance masculine and feminine energy, thank you for that beautiful description, Jennifer, within ourselves and male and female power in the world, democracy is a love story waiting to happen. And love, as the power that unites us all, is calling to us all. As we know, it's time to build a growing network of compassionate, resilient, regenerative communities ready for change. ready to respond compassionately to the changes already upon us due to climate, and ready to change proactively to stop further degradation of our world. It is time to evolve democracy and to build caring and equitable economies and to restore the Earth's biosphere. That is why we are producing an event called It's Time 2015, the Partnership Summit to Elevate Women's Leadership. May 1st through 3rd to convene 2,500 men and women across sectors live in Baltimore and also live streamed to 13 partner cities across the U.S. and London. It's Time 2015 will engage state-of-the-art technology for a participatory movement-building experience that is annual and that brings this conversation to a national conversation. It's time to take these conversations much wider and much broader. It's time to call one another to greater and greater capacity to convene and to communicate in forms now that we have technology to serve us with. It's time for an inaugural summit annually. So a diverse set of committed stakeholders, including politicians. Can you tell I'm headed to D.C. soon? I'll be meeting with leader Nancy Pelosi in her office and Representative Speer and Boxer and Representative Donna Edwards, who is the head of the Women's Bipartisan Caucus. There is a growing imperative for the women in D.C. and men in D.C. that we build this bipartisan support for women's leadership. So It's Time 2015 will also be the launch of a platform for a new cooperatively owned business enterprise that will offer services and products to individuals and co-op owners while creating a sustainable funding stream for organizations working to build gender partnership and to evolve our democracy. I hope you'll join us. I hope you'll come to It's Time 2015 to learn more, but more importantly, what I hope is that in every day and every way, no matter what you're doing, you will see and feel that what you have to do matters, and that it's not the moments when we lose our power, and I know we all feel it, is when we think that our individual actions won't make a difference. The change now is that every one of our actions makes a difference, and the careful use of our energy and our power and our resources and our money is building, and that building, we hope, will convene and be a part of a convening in May that you will be a part of. Thank you for your time.